The great thing about FireMonkey is you can build, design, and prototype your app on Windows, and then it runs across all the platforms. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build this, show you how it all works on Windows, and then I'll demonstrate it on the other platforms for you as well, so you can see how it works there. And I'll point out the subtle differences as I go along. So I've got a simple little app here. I'm going to go ahead and run this right now. It doesn't do anything interesting at this point, but you'll watch here as I type something in here. Hello world. If I close it and reopen it, it starts over at the beginning again. That's what you normally see in an app. If you take a form, add an edit box, run it, that's exactly the behavior you'll see. Now, on Windows, that's what we expect to happen. When we're done with an app, we close it, we reopen it, and it starts over at the beginning again. Now, on a mobile device, what happens though is users switch between apps, right? The ability to switch between apps, app runs in the background for a while. The problem is that the OS doesn't know when you're finished with an app or when you're planning to come back. And at some point, it will decide, oh, you must be finished with that app because you've launched 25 other apps, or this app's really big, or it's been a while, or whatever this criteria the OS uses. And it decides to close down the app that's in the background. And you lose all your work. You lose everything you've been working on. So that's where SaveState comes in. So how this works is on your form, on any FireMonkey form, there's an event called onSaveState. Now this event fires right before the OS pushes your app out of memory on a mobile device. On Windows and Mac, it also fires when the form is closed. So I've already got a handler I've written earlier in here. So what happens here? On the save state, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a binary writer, and I'm going to go to the save state property. So I have a save state property on my form, and it has a stream in it. First thing I'm going to do is going to clear that stream because I'm going to put some more data in there. And if I don't clear the stream out, I'm just going to keep adding more data. The stream will get huge, and I only ever read the first set of data anyway. So clear your data. And I'm also going to check to see if any of my edits have anything worth saving in them. So if they have content to them. You don't have to do this. You can persist an empty stream if you want to, but just for example's sake this time, I'm going to make sure that they have something in there before I save to them. If they do, then I'm going to construct my binary writer and I'm going to point it to that stream. And then I'm going to go through and write the contents of my controls to the binary writer, which then writes it to the stream. That's it. That's all you have to do to persist your form. Now you can persist other things in here. The binary writer is overridden. You can persist integers, singles, etc. So one thing that's important though is that the order you write these in must be the same as the order you read them in. Otherwise, if you, for example, write a single and try to read it back as a string, you're going to get problems. Okay, so make sure you're writing them in the same order you're reading them. So as you add new ones, add them to the end of the list and don't remove one. So if, for example, I remove edit 2, just write an empty string, and that way it remains compatible. So here it is, reading it in. All I'm going to do is create a binary reader, check the stream size. If it's greater than 0, there's something there. So I have a little label here. I just show that I've restored state because there was something in the stream. And all I'm going to do is use the binary reader to go through and read these values in the same order and put them back into those controls. So now I'll run it with that reader in place, or the save state in place, and I'll say, hello world. This is saved. And I close it and relaunch it. And we see that it saved my state. So this is the low-level use case, if you will, the underlying stuff that you need to understand how this works. A couple other things in here, these are optional, is you can change the storage path. So by default, it's going to store it in a temporary location or transient location. That means that the OS could push it out. At some point, that data could get lost. If you want to persist it permanently or semi-permanently, you could store it, for example, in documents path or home path or something like that. So that's an option as well. You can also change the name. Now, by default, it creates a name for it. This is the file name on Windows that it saves it to, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But you can change it to a different name. One reason you might do that is you could actually have multiple streams, multiple save files for your form. One point is if you do have multiple forms in your application, each form will have its own save file, but you could have multiple save files for a single form. So for example, you could have one save file that only has the contents of the edit controls or the controls on the form. You get another save file that has something else that keeps track of your state. Maybe you want to store the SQL query that they ran to get them to the point that they're at, or something like that. You could store that in a separate save file if you want to. You can store it all in the same save file if you want to as well, but this is just an added level of flexibility. So like I said, these two are optional. You probably are less likely to use the name, but if you do want, like I said, want to change it from being transient to being more permanently stored, then use the get document path or something similar like that. So there is a class helper here I'm going to show you. Let me show you this sample here. So this one has some controls on it, and actually I'll go back and show you the code here. There's two lines of code that are used: a load form state helper and save form state helper. So it's on the same event handlers, save state or create. And what that does is it uses this nifty library here, which is in Object Pascal, and it's persisted out as JSON. So it goes through all the controls in your form, component count, goes through all the components, says, hey, do you have data? You do. Let's turn it into JSON. Let's stream that out. Okay, so you don't have to worry about this if you don't want to, but you see it's two lines of code, and it's going to persist all the controls in your form. So I'll run this here. Oh, let's run the right one. And we'll type my name, Jim McKeith, and I really like Android. Close it, reopen it, and it persists it all. So there you go. If you do want to change the location, you can just do that here by the same way you would here. So I just take this, save storage path, copy that, and we could paste that right here. And I could change the storage path to go from transient to permanent storage. That's it. That's all there is to using SaveState to save and restore the state of your application. So let's go ahead and take a look at this on a few other platforms as well. Before I do, I promised I would show you the files that get saved. So the transient location on Windows is the temp folder. So here we go. These are the files. So you notice it's the project name and then a form name in here. And if I open this guy up, we can see here is the strings with some binary in there because it's a binary string. Let's see, this would be the JSON version. So we see some binary, and then here's the JSON that I just persisted out. Now you'll notice here, this one's got a different name. This is when I was experimenting with changing the save name. So if you look here, see it change the name here, and there's the other file that shows up. So this one had two files that were persisted for because at one point I ran it with the different name. So here's the helper version of the app running on Nexus under Marshmallow. I'm going to put my name in here. Jim McKeith, preferred OS, Android. And I'm going to tap the home button here and then launch it again. And we see that my data is still here. Now at this point, the activity never left memory, okay? It was still running in the background. If I come out here and swipe to dismiss it and launch it again, we see now relaunch, we saw a splash screen, but my data is not here. Now the reason my data is not here is because I terminated the app. On Android, if you terminate the app, you lose the data. Now, so the way I can test this is I can go into developer options. So settings, developer options, down here at the bottom, it says don't keep activities, or right here in the middle of the screen. You scroll down to the bottom, it's almost at the bottom. Yeah, it's the very bottom of the scroll. Turn this on. And so what this does is this causes the activity to be destroyed as soon as your user leaves it, which then triggers the OS's persistence to persist that. Okay, so now we'll come back here. We see again, we got the splash screen, but my data's here. Okay, so the save state event fired, and the data is persisted. If I do hit the back button from here, for example, though, that terminates the app. So if I bring up SaveState again, we see that it's lost it. But with that, I put my names backwards. You'd think I know my own name. With the setting here, though, in settings, switching over here, switching back, splash screen relaunches the app, restores from SaveState. All right, iOS, Android, or iPad here. So I launched it. You saw the splash screen. Just put my name in here. Jim. Last name Keith. Preferred OS. We'll say iOS this time because, hey, I got lots of devices. I can prefer all of them. Come out. If I tap to launch it again, notice we didn't get the splash screen. Okay, so it was still in memory at that point. But if I double tap on the home screen or the home button and then swipe to dismiss and then come back here and we launched it again, we saw the splash screen and the data is persisted. Okay, so this one, iOS, it does persist it even if you do terminate it. But then if you are leaving the app in the background and it gets pushed out of the memory, which happens to me all the time on my iPad, it restores it and keeps the state there for you. So very, very useful, very handy on the iPad. Here it is running on OS 10, Jim McKeith, and we'll say OS 10 just to make OS 10 happy. And we launch it again. And there it is, restored my state, persisted it for me. If you want to find out where it's located at in here, just check out where the file is stored at. It's in shared location. Check out the help docs for Get Temp Path, and you can see exactly where the file is stored.